Hey, y'all. This is Rachel with the Friendly City Books podcast. Today, we are going to be talking with author June Gervais. She wrote the novel Jobs for Girls with Artistic Flair about a girl in the 1980s who was trying to become a tattoo artist. It's one of my favorite books. Here is the beautiful cover.
I got the
Hello,
paperback
June.
right
Oh,
here.
and the paperback. I think I love the paperback even more.
I shouldn't play favorites, but I really do love it. This one was because an actual woman tattoo artist designed this one, Becca Janae Bacon.
Yeah.
So I was like, my heart, I really like that.
That's awesome. What was the artist name again?
Her name is Becca Janae Bacon, and
Okay,
she works at Kings Avenue Tattoo.
Nice. Very nice. Well, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
So we actually met June in 2022, shortly after the book came out. She came all the way from New York to Columbus, Mississippi to do an event with us. And we talked about the book. We talked about tattoos. We had some input from a local tattoo artist. We had art on display, and we had a table set up where we all drew our own flash, and that was a lot of fun. And guess what I have with me today? Say anything awesome. June drew this. See, she find it right there. This is very special to all of us at the bookstore. So
I'm honored.
I just show that because it's awesome.
Do you see that your possum is on my wall right there, on my office wall? Can you see?
Yes.
So, when I came to Friendly City, Rachel, I came with a very dear poet friend, Jamie Dixon, who had come out with a book recently also, and we did a reading together. And Rachel made these beautiful gift bags for us with these original possum paintings, which now is in my office because I have such a place in my heart for Friendly City. I just feel happy when I look at it. We had such a great time with you guys.
Thank you. It was wonderful. And of course, and so now, we are in correspondence with June, and it's just a wonderful friendship. So yeah, she's here today on the podcast, and we're going to just jump into it. So can you give us like your elevator pitch for Jobs for Girls? If you were just telling someone real quick what it's about.
Yeah, usually I tell people it's about a young woman. It's a coming of age love story. Aspiring to become a tattoo artist in the 80s when the field was mostly men, very gritty, subculture on the fringes, definitely not in the mainstream as it is now. She's a young queer woman. She's 18. She's just graduated high school, and she's just kind of becoming aware of her sexuality. She's grown up in a rough home with a mom who's not really stable. And this tattoo shop that her brother Dominic owns, who's 10 years older than her, has been kind of her sanctuary all through high school. And all she wants to do is become an artist. And so she has to, she's up against all the obstacles that you would be at that time, along with all the normal ones of an apprenticeship, mastering your craft, and in the meantime, falling in love and coming into her own. And it's quirky. It's got illustrations that I drew, and that's it. And I'm so unbelievably honored and humbled every time you say this is one of your favorite books. And you were just one of my great encouragers in the months before a book comes out. It can be very nerve-wracking, especially if it's your debut and you have no idea if anybody's going to connect with it. And you're so sick of looking at it that you're like, I cannot read this book one more time.
Oh, my goodness.
I didn't know you. We live very far apart. And then I saw the little review you had written online about it, and it just gave me so much encouragement leading up to the release of the book, thinking, okay, if this one bookseller loves this book this much, and there's probably going to be somebody out there who connects with it too. So this is like just another reason I love booksellers and indie bookstores so much, because they do, like, you guys are matchmakers between authors and readers. And I know that was more than an elevator pitch, but I had to tell you like how much I appreciate it.
That's okay. I thank you. I mean,
of course,
that is one of the magical things about book selling. Like you said, finding a book that maybe you otherwise wouldn't have come across if you didn't have some of the resources the booksellers do, like getting ARCs or talking to sales reps and publishers, and then magic happens. And I mean, honestly, like this book really did connect with me so deeply as an artist, as a tattoo collector, and just the story of Gina, the main character, and how she views the world, in a lot of ways was so very familiar. So I genuinely love it, and I have talked about
Thank
it
you.
to so many people. And I was so excited when we were able to meet in person and have that event. That was wonderful. So
What a joy it was. You guys pulled out all the stops. You had such a that was one of the coolest events I did.
awesome. Very cool.
Yeah.
Um, well, can you tell us a little bit more about the journey of the book, like how maybe the idea started and
Yeah.
how it grew into the
Yeah.
novel?
So when I was the first time I set foot in a tattoo shop, I was 6 years old. My mom
Mhm.
was getting tattooed, and she took me with her, and that was not something that was common at the time. But I just grew up really loving my mom's tattoo, and I would sit on her lap, and she had this, it was a butterfly on her wrist, and I would kind of trace it. And we were all artists in my family, and I was just really fascinated of the idea that you could have art on your body,
Mhm.
and why do people choose the art that they do, and where do they put it in? So as I got older, I knew I wanted to be a writer. I mean, from the time I was little, I just knew it. So I started writing my first novel when I was 19, and I was taking a novel writing workshop in college. And the professor said, choose a setting that you're going to want to spend a lot of time in and characters you're going to want to be with, because you're going to be with this a long time.
Mhm.
And I just thought a tattoo shop seemed like so full of fictional possibility. It's such a rich setting and a place I wanted to be. Um, and then it took many, many years to write it. It took me probably 3 or 4 years to complete the first draft, because I was in college and I was working and I was an activist. And then, just draft after draft while I was like doing various jobs supporting my writing. Then I had kids, and then I went to grad school, and all together it took probably about 20 drafts from the first one that I wrote to the one that actually like made it into the world after all the drafts with my agent and my editor. So it was a long, long, long process.
I mean, that's encouraging to hear, though, for people who are like, man, I don't know if I could do this. Like, it's okay if it
Yeah.
takes 20 years. Sometimes that's just how it works.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then you end up with
Definitely.
something you really love. So
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
I think
for
it
sure.
was totally worth it.
Thank
um,
you. I appreciate that.
so yeah. So I am not a tattoo expert. I am tattooed. I've spent a decent amount of time in tattoo shops, enough that when I read the book, I could definitely see the accuracy in the details, and I loved
Thank
that. I
you.
was like, "Oh, she knows what she's talking about." Like you talk about the steps of an apprenticeship, the very specific like culture and language of the shops, how to clean and tune tattoo machines,
Mm,
the grind of drawing practice, just all these things that fleshed out the world of the novel so well because it was legit. And it made me wonder, I know you talked to some tattoo artists, didn't you, to research? What kind of reception did you get? Because I know or at least for a while, there was a lot of secrecy around
mhm.
industry secrets. Did you encounter any of that when you were researching the book, or did you find people who were willing to, give you the info you needed?
I was so fortunate. They were so gracious, like everyone that I spoke to. And I'm very aware whenever I step into somebody's space, whether that be a tattoo studio or just the space of asking them to talk about their lives as a
Mm-hmm.
novelist, that that's theirs. And I wanted to be respectful, and I didn't want to abuse anybody's time. But they were so gracious. I interviewed and shadowed probably 10 different tattoo artists.
Oh, wow.
Um, yeah, some of them, and ranging in age from they were in their 60s to probably early 30s. So they really covered a range of tattoo history, because so much changed in the tattooing industry in the 80s
Mm-hmm.
and the 90s. And like circa Y2K is when it really blew up. So at some point, I realized I need to find people who remember, who were there in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I was really fortunate. I tattoo artists would sit and show me and explain to me like, how does a machine work? And here's the coils, and here's how you assemble it and put it together. I used there's an old manual by a writer, tattoo artist named Huck Spalding called
Hmm.
Tattooing A to Z. Yeah. Okay. So you're familiar with it. So like I would consult those diagrams. I watched videos. I don't know if you want to talk about this now or later, but there were definitely books that I consulted, and Margot Mifflin's. Well, this was more about like this wasn't so much about the technicality of tattooing, but we were talking earlier about Bodies of Subversion by
Yes.
Margot Mifflin, which is kind of the seminal book on women in tattooing, and it came
Hmm.
out late, I think around 1997 or 1998.
Yeah.
And the first time I encountered this book, I was in high school and I was a page at the library. So my job was to
Okay.
put the books back on the shelves. And this came back on the cart. And I was just like, what? I just stopped the work I was doing and just reading this book. And then later this became important to my research too. But yeah, I also had tattoo artists read the book after I had written it to make sure
Mhm.
that I got all the details right. There's stories in the book that literally come from the life of a woman named Lynn Terhar, who was a pioneering artist here on Long Island. So, and she gave permission for that. I would never use that without, but
Yeah.
she's like, yeah, honey, go ahead. So
Oh,
it was
that's
great.
awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Did you only interview women tattoo artists or just
No, no.
a variety of people?
Variety of people. One of the
Yeah.
best interview subjects I had was a man named Marvin Moskowitz, who was a third generation tattoo artist whose father and grandfather had a tattoo shop on the Bowery in New York City, like
Oh,
way back in the day, in the early days of
yeah.
tattooing. So he was a great resource for telling me about things that don't even get used anymore, acetate stencils and charcoal dust and things like that. So
That
yeah,
is really cool.
yeah,
Thinking
he's
about
great.
how it used to be and some of the materials used
Yeah.
to our modern sensibilities of,
Oh
like
yeah.
cleanliness and sanitation and all the health conscious, you're like, oh my God. But I
Yeah.
mean, they did it.
Yeah.
It worked.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things I'm currently reading Bodies of Subversion. It is so good.
Oh, it is
I recommend it to
good.
anybody.
Yeah.
But it is so fascinating. Um, because it starts her history starts in the like the late 1800s
Yeah.
with women who were tattooed from head to toe, and their
Yeah.
career was as performers. They would go put themselves on display and people
Yeah.
would pay to come see them.
Yeah.
Um, and it's wild to think, because we all have the mental image of like the 1800s, the 1900s, the Victorians, the very buttoned
Yeah.
up. And so reading this history and sort of having to reconcile those two images in
Yeah.
your brain is so interesting.
Yep.
I could go on and on about that book, but I guess I'll just say it's really cool to start reading that history and see that women at that time, they did their performances, but from what I understand, they would go home to their husbands, their traditional sort of family setups. Usually they would
Hmm.
be buttoned up. And so they had a level, I guess, of quote unquote respectability
I,
in a way. But then you get to the 80s and tattooing is starting to become the thing that we picture it now, the culture of,
yeah.
edgy and leather jackets and all that.
Yeah.
And like women seem to have a harder time in the 1980s getting into it
Mm.
than maybe in the 1800s. I mean, I know it's different context, but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
interesting to think about the ebb and flow
Yeah.
of the power structures.
Yeah,
So,
definitely. I think another thing I love about Bodies of Subversion is she really gives proper credit to Jackie Gresham,
mhm,
who was, I think, who may be the first well-known I'm looking for the page with her, African American woman
mhm.
tattoo artist in the US. And
Yeah,
she's so important, was so influential. I'm trying to find her picture, and here we go. She's so fabulous. Jackie Gresham
very
was, yeah,
cool.
a huge inspiration to me also as I was researching the book, just because she went out and did it at a time when Black
Mm-hmm.
women did not have a place in the field. And now if you go to a
Mm-hmm.
tattoo convention, you will see so many women of color. There's like
Mm-hmm.
non-binary people and there's queer people. And there's like the field has just blown open to so many more
Mm-hmm.
people. So I really like that Margot Mifflin took the time to try to give props to the people who helped that happen.
Yes, definitely. And I
Yeah.
think the version of the book I have says it's revised. Like she updated it recently to include
Oh,
more
cool.
of the modern, I guess maybe internet era sort of tattoo artist, and like how
Cool.
it's changed even more since the 90s. So I thought that was
Yeah.
really cool too.
That's awesome. I
Um,
don't have that version. That's very cool.
yeah. Yeah. So um, you're an artist and you're a tattooed person.
Yep.
And I think reading the book that very personal connection to the art and tattoos and tattoo culture just really shines through. It's the
Thank
warmth of
you.
that personal connection is there, as opposed to maybe someone who isn't really in that world and just did research. I feel like
Yeah,
you
thank
can
you.
definitely tell the difference. And it handling like the physical book itself to me very much felt like an artistic passion project. And you
Oh,
mentioned earlier you did illustrations in the book
I did.
of
Yeah.
of the tattoos that they talk about that Gina does or things that she
Yeah.
draws.
Yeah, I
That
did.
was very cool. Um,
Thank you so much.
yeah. And now the artist who did the work for the hardcover jacket,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
that was awesome. Who was that?
So her name is Kimberly Glider, and
Mm-hmm.
she's a book cover designer, and she's won awards, and she's amazing. And I really appreciated the work that she did because I could tell she had looked at the illustrations I had
Mm-hmm.
done and taken elements of it. I mean, she really like emulated my handwriting on the front cover. I was pretty
Yeah.
impressed, like all the little stippling, and I really appreciated how she took the spirit of the drawings I did, but then she did it much, much better. Like she's a professional artist. I'm really only a dabbler. I'm not a real artist. I was
Mm.
like, I'm a good enough artist to pass for like an 18-year-old with a knack for drawing. But Kim Glider took the drawings and then made it like pro.
I think calling yourself an artist, you're an artist in your soul. And I've seen your
You're so
work. You're an
sweet.
artist. So
Aw, thanks. Thanks. I could draw a possum when inspired once in a while.
I've seen other work you've done online. You're definitely an artist. You're
Oh,
you're a Renaissance woman.
thank thank you. As are you, my friend.
I try. um so are you working on anything new? Like, do you have a new book in the works now?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Ooh. Can you
Um,
talk about it or is it still
Sure.
pre-secret?
No, I can talk about it. It's tentatively titled the Kartuli alphabet. And
Okay.
Kartuli is the language of Sakartvelo, which is the nation of Georgia,
Hmm.
in the Caucasus by like Russia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Turkey. That's where it's located in the world.
Hmm.
And they have a very distinctive 33 character alphabet. They have there's just an incredible and rich amount of human history in this part of the world. That's the first place wine was made. Anyway, so my best friend is Georgian, and so is her husband. And we've kind of raised our children together, and I just became fascinated. They're very good evangelists for the various parts of their culture, like cuisine. I just became fascinated. And at one point, my friend said to me, "Would you ever think about writing about Georgia?" And I thought I wanted to, but I was afraid because, again, I want to be culturally sensitive. I'm not
Hmm.
Georgian. So I thought I don't think I could write from a Georgian protagonist, but I could write maybe about an American. How could I bring these things together? And I'd had an idea a long time ago for what if there was all right, because I'm on Long Island, right? So we have a lot of strip malls. Not proud of it, just saying that's how it is. And those old mom and pop like five storefront strip malls, which
Hmm.
I don't know I don't remember how the strip malls are in Mississippi, but here they all have like nail salon, pizzeria, dry cleaner, bagel store, and I don't know, card shop. There's like a bunch of
Hmm.
random things that are in this little assortment. Those places
Pretty
always
similar.
fascinated me. Yeah. And I always thought, what if they're the most mundane of places? Like, what if there was a strip mall that was secretly kind of a sacred place or a thin place or transcendent things happened there and like nobody knew. So I thought, could I cook up a book that somehow connected this uncanny strip mall in suburban US and like the nation of Georgia? So that's a book I'm writing right now.
That sounds really cool.
I'm having a lot of fun with it. I'm having a lot of fun.
Do you have an idea yet of like when it might be released, or is it still too early in the
It's still too early.
process?
So my agent is on board with it, but right now we actually just pitched it to my editor who edited Jobs for Girls. So it may or may not be up their alley. We'll see. If they're into it, then I'll go with them, and if not, then I'll finish writing the book and we'll find somebody else.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I cannot wait for updates. That sounds really awesome. And I mean,
Thank
honestly,
you so much.
after Jobs for Girls, I will read anything you write. So,
Oh my gosh, Rachel, I should tell you actually. Okay. So so as I started writing this new book, I was just realizing the process that I used to write Jobs for Girls was not working. It's almost like two kids need to be raised differently or whatever. I'm like, this is not working. So I started just writing, like jotting notes and things, sort of mindset stuff that would help me with this new book, process things, methods. And I was having a hard time picturing like it's helpful sometimes to picture who are you writing for. And I literally thought of you because you were you were so supportive of Jobs for Girls that I hope this is not creepy, but once in a while when I get discouraged and I think like, why am I writing this freaking book? Like books are so hard. I will sometimes like imagine a case of this new book just showing up at Friendly City. And I'm like, Rachel will read it. I'm like, Rachel will take this book home and like be psyched about it. So I hope not to be like creepy, but
no, that's
again,
awesome.
this is like why I'm so appreciative of like the indie booksellers that I've met along the way, because it's just very different from like a large chain or unnamed internet website executive. Like,
I have no idea.
They don't care. They don't care if I write this book or not. But like you do, and there's a bookstore in Seattle that I know does, and there's a bookstore, that's like, it's just cool. So anyway.
Yeah. Well, that's going to make me tear up a little bit. That's awesome. I'm glad that I can be part of that inspiration.
Oh,
that's awesome.
So I want to then I'll think I got to do a good job. I got to write a good book and not disappoint her.
So I know, so you're working on your new book, but you have also been doing these cool, I say webinar, I don't know if that's the right word, these little like intimate like Zoom meeting things that you're calling Curio Cabinet for Creatives. And I got to attend a little bit of one, and then I think I had to like run to a meeting or something, but it was very cool. Can you tell us a little bit about those and sort of how that came about?
Sure. We've only done one so far, and it's just a free thing we were doing. So last summer when the paperback came out, I did an event at a tattoo studio in Rochester, New York called Hinterland Tattoo Studio. And it's such a beautiful space. It is tattoo studio / art gallery / event space. It's run by this amazing woman, Hayden Welch. And I actually she and I just had such chemistry. We ended up, the event wasn't just an event for my book. We thought like, how could we do something that would serve the larger community and not just be like, buy my book? Like, how could we like create a space? And I have a background in like activism and ministry and public speaking. And like, so I get excited about creating spaces where people come together, and she kind of does too. So we had this night, and it was called Invisible Made Visible, which was a phrase from Jobs for Girls with Artistic Flair. And it in the book, it's in the context of like a tattoo is something that was like something invisible made visible that you're now willing to have people see. But we talked about if you're an artist or a maker or a creative of any kind, how do you bring whatever it is that you're making, how do you bring it to the next step of the process? Whether that's like from a seed of an idea to now you have something on a piece of paper, from a first draft to like the next thing, from a finished thing to have the courage to bring it out into the world. So that was the event we had in Rochester. And we both just, something special happened. Sometimes you get a group of people in the room, and these people brought a really good energy, and we had great, like just good chemistry, and we just became friends. So Rochester's quite far from Long Island. It's about, I don't know, if I take an Amtrak, it's about 8 hours to get there or so. and that's from New York City. I'm not on Long Island, so maybe more like 10 hours. So we thought, like, if we could do one of these once a season, that would be really cool. And maybe once in a while we could do them, in person if I can take a hike up there. But what could we do online? So
Yeah.
we thought, every season kind of brings its own energy for a creative person, right? So I know your winters are milder than ours, and then your summers seem pretty brutal.
Yeah. To say
Yeah,
the least.
yeah, but the winters here often like hibernate, and sometimes we put this pressure on ourselves to just keep creating and producing as if our bodies are not reacting to the natural world in the way that we
Mhm.
do. So we just put together this event called Curio Cabinet for Creatives about what do you do in the wintertime as a creative? What are some practices that you can do? Can you use this time for gathering material, for filling the well? Can you use this for distilling your own ideas and planning for the next season? We just had a good time. So I don't know what we're going to do with these, but I think if nothing else, they're inspiring for us, and it's
Mhm.
been encouraging for the two of us to have just I do you have a friend like that, a creative friend that when you talk with them, you
Mhm.
just get re-inspired,
Yes, I do. And I think about that concept a lot of when you have seasons that you either
Yeah,
can't or just are in the middle of projects and you're,
yeah,
like you said, filling the well.
yeah,
And I think it's so valuable, like you said, to be able to talk to even just one person
yeah.
and share that feeling and know that it's okay. You're not alone. You're not the only creative person to have the
Oh
ups and
yeah,
downs. And
yeah.
I do think it's really beautiful when you can get with other people and just share that encouragement.
Yeah, yeah, to realize that you're not alone,
Hmm.
and that you're not the only weirdo in your house trying to make something and getting stuck. And yeah, what are you working on right now, by the way? Are you drawing? Do you write? Like,
Um,
what are you making, Rachel?
I so I have been focusing on painting.
Cool.
I do have sketchbooks. I draw I draw more in my sort of like downtime seasons like that. That's when I pick up my sketchbook to keep something going.
Yeah,
But when I'm actively working, I paint
yeah.
and usually on canvas. Sometimes I'll find objects and like upcycle and paint them. That's been a lot of
Oh,
fun.
cool.
At the end of 2023 in October, I had some pieces in a gallery show here in Columbus.
Congratulations. That's
Thank
awesome.
you. It was my first gallery show.
Oh my gosh, that's huge. That's so big.
It was a lot of fun. I had a great time, and it was eye opening to see how much work went into only
Yeah,
showing like 8 to 10 pieces. I worked on those all year
yeah,
around my full time job at the bookstore.
right.
And
Yeah,
so someone asked me if I was going to do it again this year. I was like, I think I may need to take a break.
yeah.
Um, but I've got some commissions going. I have ideas for
That's so
things I want
cool.
to do this year, but I also just moved, so it's been getting my studio set back up.
Holy
A
cow.
little bit of chaos,
Yeah,
uh, but I'm definitely feeling the itch to like get back to it. So
yeah,
I consider that a good sign that I'm like can't stay away. I've got to keep doing stuff.
yeah. That's
And
awesome.
I
Congrats.
thank you. It's fun. Um, I have written some in the past. That's not really my focus lately,
Yeah,
but I don't know. I guess this may sound weird, but maybe you understand. I feel like there's always a part of my brain that's a little bit of a writer's brain going
yeah.
with all the other things I work on. But as
Yeah.
far as like having finished pieces to submit, I haven't done that in a really long time.
Yeah. I mean, that comes in seasons too. Last year,
Hmm.
there's years that I published short pieces in journals or magazines or whatever. Last year, I submitted nothing. I wrote no short pieces. The paperback was launching, and I felt,
Hmm.
ever since the book has come out, I feel kind of a responsibility to like, all right, I wrote this thing like a love letter, and I want to help it get to the people that I wrote it for. So I had stuff to do for the paperback. Also, my son was sort of weirdly, mysteriously sick for some months. He's better now. It's good.
Good.
But, it's things like that. Life happens, and part
Mm-hmm.
of you, probably, I don't know, not everybody, but a lot of us can probably relate to the guilt of like, oh, I should be working, I should be making things
Mm-hmm.
that, but like seasons of life come when you have to be like, no, you're moving, or there's a family thing, or whatever
Yeah.
it is. But now, I had like a year off from that, and I'm feeling psyched. I'm ready. I just came back from, the AWP Writers Conference in Kansas City, Missouri, and
Yeah.
I just have like I have all this energy to start submitting poems, like short fiction. So, yeah, I relate to that,
Mm.
and you're right. There's so much work that goes into. You look at something and it's 8 to 10 pieces of art, and we can consume that in like an evening, and take it in,
Mm-hmm.
and but hours and hours and hours went into that,
Mm-hmm.
weeks and months, and that's a huge
Yeah.
accomplishment.
Well, thank you. It was
Yeah,
fun, and hopefully I'll get to do it again. Maybe
yeah,
next year though, not
yeah,
2024.
yeah,
um, but yeah, I like, again, I like what you said about still finding ways to fill your well. One of the
yeah,
things I actually like to do when I'm having those downtimes, and anytime, but especially in the the more quiet times of creating,
yeah.
is I watch a lot of YouTube videos of artists that I like.
Oh,
I
oh,
watch them work, or I watch them draw. And
yeah.
I had to like remind myself, like, yes, this feels passive, but I am actively drawing inspiration from this,
Yes,
even
yes,
when I don't have the energy to like doodle in
yes,
my sketchbook. If this is all I can do, that is okay. And I
yes.
think
And
that
it's
is
still
important.
valuable. Yeah,
Hmm.
it is. And I'm so grateful to you for the reminder of that in a specific way, because like I'm doing that now, and I'm reading literary magazines, and it's so,
Hmm.
yesterday that was my work for the day. I sat and I read magazines, and I read these short stories, and I thought about how they were made, and I had nothing that I had created at the end of the day, but that
Hmm.
is a part of the process.
Yeah, it's a
Um,
very important part too.
it is, yeah.
Yeah. And I think sometimes, I think a lot of times it can be hard to give yourself permission to
Hmm.
do that, and remind yourself like this is still legitimate work.
Right.
Because if you're living the life, like if your craft is not just the product, it's
Yeah.
your life, and all the things you take in and distill.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
even when you're tired,
Yeah.
or you're just doing the little things, like that's still part of it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it,
Like we're not art making machines.
yeah, exactly. And
Has
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna ask if you'd read a thing, but we could talk. You finish, and then I'll ask you.
Well, I was going to say the curio cabinet little Zoom meetup, like, was very meditative. Just
Oh,
the
I'm so
energy
glad.
in that virtual space was very calming. And I remember
Oh,
I'd had a very busy day up until then, and then I had, like I said, I had to go early, but like for the 30 minutes or so I was there, it was so wonderful to like take a breath and be calm, and like focus on
oh.
something that was soothing but also very inspiring. So I
Now
thought that's what I thought about it.
you made me teary now.
Oh.
Because we'd never done that before. And the thing about talking to people in a virtual space is not my favorite way to be. I like to be in a room with people, because I feel
Hmm.
like you can serve them better. Because then I can respond better to like, you could see if people are disengaging or engaging, or like, and be like,
Hmm.
okay, what can I bring that will serve people in the time that we have together? And that's harder to discern through screen. So, and I was so worried that we weren't gonna bring anything useful. People get online all the time and like blah blah blah. I don't know. I don't want to waste anybody's time. So that really means a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, I thought it was great. I hope y'all do more, because I would love
Thank
to
you.
be able to participate. I'm sorry,
Thanks so
but you were going to
much.
ask me if I
Oh
had read
yeah,
something.
I was gonna ask. So have you read The Creative Act, A Way of Being by Rick Rubin yet?
I haven't yet. It is on my shelf. And actually, I saw your recent Instagram post about it.
Yeah.
And like reading the excerpts that you had highlighted, I was like, yes, this is exactly Like this guy gets it.
I love it. I am digging it so much. I'm finding you can read it the way that back in the days when I was a minister, like I might have read a devotional, like you flip
I
it
thought
open and
about that.
it's like a little short kind of something. Every time I open it, I just
Hmm.
come away inspired. And I think especially in a busy season,
Hmm.
it's been really good. I haven't even read the whole thing yet because I'm just like eating in little
Yeah.
bites.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
glad to hear that perspective about it too. That makes me a little less intimidated to dive into it, to be honest.
Yeah.
So yeah, I
Oh,
think
yeah.
I'll move that up the list now that I know it can be consumed that way.
Oh, yeah, you could just read a thing while you're having your coffee or whatever in the morning, and
Mhm.
you can open it anywhere. It's not even like a linear thing that you have to.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah,
okay.
it's
Very
been cool.
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, and so that's been helpful to you, I
definitely. Yeah,
gather? De
definitely. Mhm.
Okay, very
Yeah,
cool.
sure.
Um, so what have besides the creative act, like have you read anything cool lately? Just fun, any movies or books that you want to recommend to us?
Yes, I have. And I was like, she might ask this question. And people often do on podcasts. And I often
Mhm.
stare blankly and I'm like, this time I'm going to be prepared.
Yeah.
I just got this one from the library and I'm loving it. It's called Likes. And it's by,
Ooh,
forgive me, I don't know how to exactly pronounce her name, Sarah Shumlian Bynum.
okay.
Um, if she ever sees this, forgive me that I didn't. I said your name clumsily. The book is wonderful. It's a book of short stories, and
Mhm.
usually I don't love short stories, to be honest. I'm more of a novel person. I want to like dive in and like hang in for the whole thing. I am just loving these. They're so smart and a little weird in a way that I like.
Yeah.
And the voice is so excellent, and she's so daring. She's doing things that she's inspiring me to be braver about. Yeah, she'll spend most of the story on a walk, what's happening in this walk and whatever. And then suddenly it's like, and then I was pregnant and had a baby, and then here we are, and we've got the baby next. And I'm like, look at that. In a writing workshop, somebody would be like, well, spend more time on the baby. And like, how did this come about? And like, no, she just knew what she wanted to say. So
Yeah.
I'm digging it. That's my
That sounds really
recommendation.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am all about a weird short story, so that sounds really cool.
Yeah. And the other one I'm just reaching for everything on my desk now. I have not read this yet, but this book is an author who's represented by my agent also. And it's called Sad Happens. And again, I'm afraid I'll mispronounce it. It's Brandon Stosoy. But he runs the Creative Independent Instagram account and like website. Have you ever seen the Creative Independent?
I think so, yeah.
It's so good. They just do these interviews with creatives. But
Yeah.
this book is called A Celebration of Tears. And it's
Mm.
just different writers and artists and people from different walks of life. I think somebody who works in hospice care, like just different professions, just talking about sadness and crying. And I'm like, I just can't wait to dig into this. I'm like, I don't know, I'm a crier. So
Yeah.
feel kinship with this. And also it's so colorful and lovely. So there's another one that
Yeah.
I'm
I
into
love
right
that
now.
cover.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
Me
sometimes
too.
you need that cathartic read to help you
Yeah.
cry and get it all out.
Yeah, for
Even though I
sure.
tend to stay away from books that make me cry, I do still appreciate the value of it.
Yeah, for sure. So can I ask, like, tell me something fun that's going on around Friendly City recently? What's something you really enjoyed? An event you guys have done or a special or like tell me what's up at Friendly City.
Um, we oh man, I'm kind of on the spot here now. No, it's fine.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. Now I know how it feels when I ask people, what's your favorite XYZ? And they're just like, I have no idea.
It doesn't
Um,
have to be your favorite. It could even just be the
yeah.
first thing like, oh, we had the best tacos the other day, or doesn't have to be fancy.
Well, we like to celebrate Mardi Gras. Our store owner is from the coast. And
Yeah.
so we have had like Mardi Gras displays. We've had beads all over the store. We had some Mardi Gras. I drew some Mardi Gras possum stickers and we had them printed up. And so we've just been like all Mardi Gras all the time for the first
Awesome.
like 2 weeks of February. And whenever we do stuff like that and have little like random goodies to give away to
Yeah.
people at the counter, the response is always really fun because I don't think people
Yeah.
expect that kind of thing in most retail stores, even bookstores.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so it feels good to be able to just like sprinkle some joy.
Yeah.
And then we have sort of done the same thing transitioning into Valentine's. So we've got like possum
Cool.
Valentines and things. And I always think it's fun when we have sort of an abundance of things to be able to do that with.
Yeah.
And we have some author events coming up with the Arts Council here and the library.
Ooh.
Some authors are going to come talk, and all that is on our Instagram. It's going to be really interesting, I think.
Cool.
But we're still, still early in the year for us. I mean, we're gearing up and getting into things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think most of the events we're doing are forthcoming. We haven't really done just a ton yet.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's always fun around the store to me. I just like being there. So
I feel that you guys were just, I loved hanging out with you guys. You were fun. The space feels good to be in. If I lived near you, I would be frequenting the bookstore a bunch.
Oh,
I bet
well,
you guys
thank
have
you.
I bet you have like a real loving, faithful following. Like you must have regulars.
Yeah, we do have regulars. I like to think that they, feel that way about us.
Um,
And we have been told by some of like the students at the W that specifically our genre room that we opened up is their favorite place in Columbus because we have tried
ah,
very hard to stock diverse stories and make it
yeah,
a safe space. And I feel like that has been really popular and well received, and
awesome.
is serving that purpose of being somewhere that people can come and hang and just feel like they can be themselves.
Yeah,
And a lot of us love reading genre fiction, so we love the room too, and so that's been a lot of fun.
that's awesome. Like, so genre, do you mean like sci-fi, romance, horror, fantasy, like that genre in that
Yes.
way?
Yes, genre
Gotcha.
in that way. So as we think of it, all the weird books. And I
Yeah,
say weird in a loving way because
I can
I
tell.
consider myself
It's
really weird.
yeah, me
So
too.
yeah, the room itself is like a much darker color. Emily let me decorate with like skeletons and some spooky things. So
Yeah.
so I really like the room because I can be a little more my creepy self in there. It's just fun.
Yeah. I'm always, when I see you like touting the horror and stuff, I'm like, I gotta, you know what? I don't read horror and you make me want to try it. Like
Oh,
if I was gonna read, I've actually been thinking I want to read more books because the new book I'm writing has a little bit of an element of the uncanny. It's like, it's on the edges.
mhm.
It's not like a super hardcore supernatural book, but if
Yeah.
you were to recommend for me a book that had elements of the uncanny, or even if you just wanted straight up horror, if I was gonna like, what's my intro to the genre? What would you throw at me?
Well, we recommend Grady Hendrix to a lot of
Hmm.
people who are new to horror because he does a really good job of giving you supernatural, just weird stuff, but with a lot of humor,
Oh, cool.
a lot of heart. You're gonna laugh a lot and still feel some things, but it's not going to keep you awake at night.
Oh, good.
Um, my favorite book by him is "We Sold Our Souls," and I
Hmm.
think you actually might really like that one because it is about a woman in her 40s who used to be in a rock band. The band broke up. She's kind of fallen on hard times, but she finds out that the vocalist has gone on to do his own solo project, and something is amiss. He has some sort of evil things going on, and it's in a similar way that I feel like Jobs for Girls is a love letter to art and tattoos. This book
Mm.
feels like that, but for music. And so again, I was just like,
Oh,
did you reach in my head and write this book? So We Sold Our Souls by Grady Hendrix, I think would be great. And I think you'd really
great.
appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
Um, and let's see. Caroline and I recently read, this isn't, you know what? I'm just going to say it. It's called Tender is the Flesh.
Okay.
It's not supernatural horror. It's more speculative. How horrific can people get? It's a very
Oh.
slim volume. And basically the premise is a virus has made every form of animal meat deadly to humans. So
Whoa.
what do we replace it with? And
Oh my.
yeah, it's a lot, but it's really good. Like it has more of a literary vibe,
Yeah.
but it goes really fast.
Yeah.
So yeah, that one, decide for yourself, maybe check trigger warnings, but it's very
Sure.
good.
Okay.
And
like trigger warnings, cannibalism.
I mean, pretty like that is the big one. Like trigger
Yeah.
warnings, just all the cannibalism, every single bit of it.
I'm
But
looking.
it's a wonderful book.
I'm looking this up because you've recommended another book on your Instagram that also is represented by my agent, and I'm like, is this okay? This is
Oh.
not it. This is not it.
Oh.
But yeah, I had to check because I'd be like, that's a weird coincidence.
Okay.
Okay, but now I've got it in my search history, so
Yeah.
I'll know to look for it.
Well, let me give you one more recommendation that's maybe sort of in the middle of both of those. I don't know if you've heard of the author Chuck Tingle.
No.
He mostly or historically has written a lot of absurdist but very genuine erotica.
Oh, cool.
It's very interesting. But he recently had a YA horror novel published end of last year called Camp Damascus. And it's essentially megachurch conversion camp, but supernatural horror.
Whoa.
So, and you're getting into, the main character figuring out her sexuality, dealing with the camp and like the sort of cult vibes of the church. And there's a lot of stuff going on. I totally get that not everybody may be able to read that because it could be very triggering for people who have tried to deconstruct, but it's an excellent book. I devoured it. It was so good. And I thought the way he added the supernatural element was very interesting. It felt very fresh. Like I had not read anything quite like that before.
Ooh, see, that's tempting when he's like, that's always intriguing when a writer manages to do something in a, like, and you've read so widely in that genre that's a very high compliment to be like, yeah, I'd never quite seen anything like that. Okay. That was a compelling sell.
and it's young adult. So it's again, there's a cap on the creep factor.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I've been reading and thinking about lately.
I like it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, I think maybe we'll wrap it up. But thank you so much for talking with us. I'm so glad to be able to see you again, even if it's virtual.
Me too. But what an honor when you guys asked me to do this. I was so honored. I think it's so cool that you're doing this podcast. And
thank you.
If anybody wants to check out my stuff online, I'm on Instagram as june.gervais.writer. And my website is junegervais.com. And my book is Jobs for Girls with Artistic Flair. And that's all the information I got.
Well, we will have all that linked in the show notes for anybody who wants to follow the links and follow June. And we do still have some signed copies of Jobs for Girls.
You guys are amazing.
So if anybody wants one. All right. Well, thank you so much. It was good to talk with you.
Thank you so much. You too. Wishing you the best with your settling into your new place and you're like getting back into art when you're ready and all the things at the bookstore. And give Emily a big hug for me too.
I will do it.
Awesome.
All right. Well, happy reading, everybody. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.